Hello and welcome to episode 241 of Page One, the Writers Podcast. I'm Tarek.
I'm Marco, and thanks for joining us on the podcast where we like to speak to writers of all kinds about their writing careers, find out how they got into the industry, and try and get as many hints and tips from them as possible. And if this is your first time joining us, please do take the time to look at our previous episodes. We've had a whole bunch of amazing writers, from authors, screenwriters, comic writers, video game writers, even agents and people like that on the show before. So please do check that out. And this week, which is the last episode in the current season, we will be taking a short break after this episode. But we have another great guest.
We do indeed. As always, this week we're chatting with the wonderful Natalie Jayne Clark, whose debut novel, The Malt Whisky Murders, is out right now. And she is a really fun chat we have with her. She chats about how she broke into the industry. Pitch Perfect, which is the Bloody Scotland's kind of pitching competition, which Marco,
I was in. Yeah,
you were on. You were on the same one as her,
yeah,
I believe.
Yeah. Neither of us won.
Yeah, but a classic example, I suppose, of putting yourself into a position where you're trying to sell your work a little bit. You might not win, but you still get something.
Absolutely,
you never know
and
who's
she
in the
got
room
something amazing.
watching.
She got a book deal and an agent within a week of that pitching
Nuts.
competition.
I mean, yeah, a proper dream
Yeah.
response from that thing. And she's obviously gone on to great success with that book. As you'll hear, she's shortlisted for this year's debut award at the Bloody Scotland Book Festival in September. So best of luck to her for that.
Yeah, and it's a really great chat with Natalie. She's a lot of fun. So we will get straight into the episode. I just want to mention, as ever, that we do have a Patreon. If you like the podcast, if you want to support us, you can go onto the Patreon. There's different tiers. And you get early access to episodes. You can get bonus bits with authors, including Natalie this week stays with us to tell us about 5 books that influenced her, and some of which are great books, actually, very unlike other books. Definitely worth choices. That's a Patreon exclusive, so if you want that, you should go and join it. But and you get notebooks, you get books and all sorts of stuff, so please do check out the Patreon if you haven't already. Also, we're on Step Podcasts. We're part of a network that we've started with Nadine Matheson of the Conversation Podcast. Follow us on Blue Sky, on Instagram at Step Podcasts, and you can keep up to date with our shows, with our joint show with Nadine, Adventures in Publishing Land, and much more. So yeah, please do check that out. But for now, let's get into the episode.
On with the podcast.
The blank page. To some, it's terrifying, an obstacle to overcome. But we prefer to think of it as an opportunity, a blank canvas to be filled with all of the adventures and characters in our head. So how to overcome that fear? Well, we all know the best advice for a writer is write. Seriously, get words on the page and more will follow.
But what about later, when you start trying to pull those threads of what you've written together? What about the character you wrote about way back at the start? Who was she again? What was she carrying? And where did she leave the MacGuffin that she now really needs in the third act? Think about all those top thrillers you like to read, or that amazing drama you just watched. What did they all have in common? Structure and planning.
As aspiring writers ourselves, we've tried many different methods to try and organise all the thoughts about the stories we want to tell. We've been there searching for a piece of scrap paper to note something down, or making a quick note on our phone in between meetings.
Or sometimes we'll make a note in whatever notebook we're carrying, or a document on our laptop so we don't forget that great idea. Let's be honest, it can all be a bit messy and it's easy to lose track of everything. And that's when we realise it's not just the story that needs structure and planning, but the way we gather all of our thoughts about it as well.
And so we made Page One. Page One is more than just another notebook. It's a place to put down all your ideas for your latest project, divided into easy-to-use sections that will help you plan your story, so that when that blank page comes calling, you're ready to answer. And then afterwards, once it's written, we realised you need to plan how to let people read it, so we included a section relating to submissions.
Each one is designed for one project, whether you want to write a book, screenplay, a comic, or any other kind of story. We truly believe that when you use it, it will help you get to the main event, writing your story. So we hope this helps.
We can't wait to read what you come up with.
And remember, every story starts with page one.
Did you always want to be a writer?
Yes. I was a big reader when I was little, and I used to sort of pretend write before I could even write. Like I would scribble on the page. And my mum recently was telling me about a great memory of hers from when I was about 3 or something. And I had, alphabeti spaghetti. And I'd be like, Mum, Mum, Mum. And I'd spelt the word bum on the edge of my plate. And she was sort of like, oh, that's lovely. Because on the one hand, she was really proud. Like, that's, your first words and like writing your first words, like sort of getting the hang of all, the phonetics and things like that. But yeah, also it's just the word bum. But I was delighted with myself. So when I told her, and I called her up to say I got the book deal and I was all very excited, and that, that's the kind of thing that it brought up for her, that, she remembers me like that. And I think that's
always tell that day you wrote bum.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. We often hear about these early writing experiences, but we've never had that before.
I know. Normally it's like I wrote books and I stapled them together for pages, and it's all very sweet and innocent. And you're just like, I just write filth with my spaghetti hoops.
Filth. The first word I ever wrote was bum.
After that, it was downhill from there.
I just set the tone. That's
But am I right in saying your background is poetry, right? You've got a lot of poetry background.
Yeah, kind of. So yeah, I was someone that was always really interested in books. I sort of wrote here and there, kind of thing. And when I was going to uni, I knew that I wanted to do English. But I come from a family where they hadn't been to university, so they were very much like, well, what job will you get, at the end of it? And so I was an English teacher for nearly a decade, actually. And so I spent all that time, analysing other people's writing and also attempting to make people that didn't necessarily want to care about it, care about it and understand it and appreciate the skill and the craft of it. So I think that was quite formative in terms of me being a writer. So I was actually teaching when we went into lockdown. So I was trying to teach like this online. And Kevin P. Gilday, who's now the Macker of Stirling, was putting on some free poetry writing workshops. And so I went along to that on Zoom, and then it kind of just opened up from there. So I think I was about, I can't remember my exact age, but about 28, let's say, So I'd spent quite a long time thinking I'd like to do writing, but I hadn't really. And that really opened up for me and kind of renewed a sense of confidence in me that actually I enjoyed it and could do it. And then then that was poetry, but I'd always wanted to write a book. So, and it just sort of happened. I applied for the Body Scotland, which I'm sure we'll get to later, the Pitch Perfect. And then I was like, oh, great. But I love both. I love poetry. I love prose. I read and I consume all sorts, Yeah.
And I mean, let's just jump to Pitch Perfect. Obviously, I mean, you and I were in the same final of Pitch Perfect. For those that are listening that don't know what Pitch Perfect is, do you just want to tell the listeners what it was?
Yeah. So, Bloody Scotland is a crime writing festival in Scotland, and they do a few different things to really try and support or find new authors. And my agent Jenny is the same, and she's sort of part of that. Looking for different ways around the traditional submissions process, for example. So, for Pitch Perfect, every year they ask for 100-word submission of an idea. And from that, from the tens and tens and tens, me and Marco were selected.
From the millions, I think it probably.
I think it was millions, yeah. I think they said, you're more likely, to win the lottery.
I think that's right, yeah.
For Pitch Perfect. And then I think normally there's 3 minutes to perform, but that year I think they chose an extra person or something that we had to have in 2.5 minutes anyway. So I spent a long time perfecting it. So what it actually is you get then 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever, about 8 of you to present your idea a little bit more fully than the 100 words to a room full of people that are interested. So agents, editors, publicists, members of the public, whatever, other authors, that kind of thing. But really the idea is to, hopefully get yourself and your novel noticed and picked up by, become represented by an agent if you're not already, and get your book deal if you haven't already.
Yeah, and in your obviously, this is not to put either of us down, but we didn't end up getting selected as the winning pitch. But things happened very, very quickly for you after Pitch Perfect, didn't they? You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it was mad. Yeah, so Fiona Brownlee, who does the PR for Bloody Scotland, was there, with that hat on, and as it is in the sort of freelance industry in the arts, she wears many hats, very, many hats, and she does the rights for Berlin, an independent publisher based in Edinburgh, and she sent an email to Alison Ray, a senior editor there, and said, oh, I like that pitch. And she emailed me, actually said, congratulations, and like, well done on, a good pitch kind of thing. And, you might get an email. Just watch out for an email. And I did. And Alison emailed me on the Monday. So I pitched on the Sunday. Less than 24 hours later, I had an email asking for my first 3 chapters. And I just ignored it and let it sit in my inbox for 2 days while I furiously edited, wrote, to make those first 3 chapters like the absolute best they could be, because really I genuinely, applied with just an idea initially, and it wasn't until they accepted me for the pitch that I started actually putting together a full synopsis and all that kind of stuff. So, I didn't have an edited, finished manuscript or anything like that. So that's why I sent it on the Wednesday. Yeah. And then they offered me a book deal the next day. And I remember Jenny Brown had been really, really lovely at the event. So I sent her an email and just said, could you help me understand this book deal? I'm aware enough to know that I shouldn't just say yes to the first thing I'm given. I'm aware enough that I don't know the business side of this. So, so that was it. Pitched on the Sunday, and by the end of that Zoom call with Jenny on the Friday, I had an agent and a preemptive book deal. So
that's fantastic.
The stuff of dreams. Yeah,
it is stuff of dreams, and it reinforces, I think, that kind of mantra which we've heard so many times on the show, which is, you never know who's out there listening. You should always go to these things and take chances, because there's opportunities come along that you might think, oh, can I really be bothered doing that? Is it going to be, who's going to be there listening? Is there any point of this? The answer is yes, because you never know who's listening. It's all about creating your own luck, isn't it? And creating those opportunities to then
hugely
explore.
Yeah, I'd always talked about it a bit like sowing seeds. So sowing seeds and nurturing them, and you don't always know what will grow out of those seeds, but planting them in the first place, you have to do that, otherwise you're not going to have kind of a harvest or whatever at the end of it. And I think and I absolutely agree with that, but I try not to go into opportunities thinking like this will be the one that gets me noticed, because that can be really damaging as well, because I'd had it a couple of times before, like, I don't know, for example, like I'd performed at the Edinburgh Book Festival in Islam, and I was like, wow, like, someone's going to see me, they're going to offer me a poetry book deal or something. And it's just, that's not always going to be the case, and there's no point in living like that. But also, preparation meets luck equals success, or whatever the equation is,
agree.
But I agree, you never know. And just a chance conversation, or someone remembers you, and maybe they don't get in touch straight away, but even a year later or 2 years later, there's a project or something that comes across their desk, and they're like, I met that person, or I heard that person. And so I agree, totally. And it's an absolute success story, and anyone who's ever done the rounds of pitching to different agents absolutely hates it.
No, but actually, Pitch Perfect as a particular competition has a very high hit rate of people getting published, but also even maybe not getting published, but getting agents and stuff like that. So it is just one of these things that it is worth putting yourself out there and having a go of it. Why not? It's 100 words. 100 words in an idea at the start of it.
And that's what I think is so great about it, is it's really accessible. It's really accessible, and it's on the strength of the idea, and then it is looked at by a panel of agents and whoever's going to be on board, I think, or the panel that day of the Pitch Perfect. It's looked at. So there's people that are in the industry then looking at all those 100 pitches. It means that their time as well is isn't wasted reading through reams and reams. So a lot of it comes down to that initial pitch of an idea, that initial idea. Can you, if you meet someone, explain your book in 30 seconds or a minute in a way to get them hooked? And that's really what they're looking. Can you write the hook? Can you write that, I think, log line or whatever you might call it? And then, so they've already done a bit of a selection process, but before you get to the pitching, and then someone finds you from there. But it's extremely accessible and really great. And and when I say hate that I just got an agent straight away, just because rejection is hard and rejection is upsetting, but everyone, people are, it's amazing, it's great. And what I think is a case for trying lots of different avenues. Don't necessarily always just try the very standard traditional process.
Yeah, use every opportunity.
I actually think these days even more so, because you just hear from agents, and we've had agents on here, and the amount of submissions they get through the sort of traditional 3 chapters and a synopsis or whatever is so huge that it's just very difficult. You could have written something brilliant, but it's very difficult to jump out of that pile. So if you do have the opportunity to get in front of them in a different way, and you can take advantage of that, then it's definitely worth doing. But the book was the Malt Whisky Murders. Do you want to tell us about that book? Give us the pitch.
The pitch.
Yeah. Flashbacks.
Flashback to pitch. So Ailey is a whiskey blogger, quite well known in the whiskey blogging circles. That's my protagonist. Her and her wife have left the rat race of Edinburgh to renovate a dilapidated whiskey distillery in Campbelltown. So quite a kind of a rural peninsula kind of thing. And they're loaned up to their eyeballs. But it's going to be an exciting new chapter of their lives. They're going to disrupt the male-dominated industry, right, of Scottish whiskey, right? Because it's a bit too, masculine, a bit too this, and but 2 of the barrels that they hope they might be able to, use for blends or might sell for thousands of pounds have dead bodies in them.
Isn't it? Don't you just hate when that happens?
It's just so bullshit. And they've been there since the 70s. I like the idea of, having it a bit of a cold case, and the idea of sort of looking at the whiskey industry over decades. And, and Campbelltown is a very particularly interesting area in terms of whiskey history. Like many towns that had, a thriving industry. What is it now? What is its identity now? But it's kind of contested as one of the whiskey regions because it has so few distilleries, whereas once it was the whiskey capital of the world. And just that element of it I found very intriguing as a thread to look at, what is the cycle of that? What is the life cycle of that kind of thing? And the bodies are a problem.
Brilliant. And I was in the audience for the Pitch Perfect that you guys did 2 years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that your pitch was excellent, and the book sounded fantastic. And it's been, it's not a surprise it's been picked up and it's gone out and it's been really well received. It's shortlisted for this year's debut award back in Scotland again in September. So that must be pretty exciting. I mean, that must be just a really nice verification, I suppose, that it's someone else likes, that kind of independent view that you've written something good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very affirming, because with any piece of work you do, there's always the doubt and things like that, and not everyone's going to like it, and that's fine. And actually, the obviously the shortlisting is incredible, and I can have that in my bio forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Shortlisted, which in itself, that you kind of sometimes do need that external credibility. Almost, it gives a credibility to you.
Yeah.
And little things like that are really, really helpful. And the other 4 authors are fantastic as well, and it's going to be amazing. So yeah, feels amazing. And the best thing so far, because it's been out for about 3 weeks. I don't know when you're releasing this, but when we're recording it, it's been out for 3 weeks. Some events I've done to absolute strangers afterwards, when I'm signing their book and they're telling me what they loved about it, or or the characters they liked, or whatever. That's been definitely the best bit. And the first time I was like, really? Oh, thank you. And it's just so nice, because my friends have all been really lovely, but they're my friends. They have to say that,
exactly.
So for complete strangers, to say, to tell me, how quickly they read the book, or they read it in one sitting or two sittings, or like they felt really represented by the book or something like that. And the people that say things like that, I'm like, well, I wrote this for you, I wrote this for you, kind of thing. And so that's I think why you should write what you want to read as well.
Yeah,
and don't
definitely.
worry about everything, because there's always going to be something that people don't like. But if you would enjoy it, then there's at least a handful of other people that would enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and it feels more authentic to people as well if you're doing that, and that's why that connection happens probably as well. But I wanted to ask as well about the structure of the book, because it's got this. The sort of POVs are, it's got third person, it's got second person, alternating. What was your thinking behind that, taking that structure towards the book?
I wanted to somehow mask details about the murderer, but I wanted to show and almost like compare and contrast the experiences in Campbelltown and a whiskey distillery, then versus now and through the decades. So I knew I wanted to do that, and I wasn't sure how to do it, without giving too much away. So that was quite a good technique for that. But years and years ago when I read Complicity by Ian Banks, I remember I hadn't seen anything like that before, and he does something very similar with the You chapters. And I remember when I was reading it, thinking, if I ever write a book, maybe I might use this as well. And I quite like books that have a sort of alternating point of view as well, or jump between a couple of threads, because it keeps me really engaged, and it makes me sort of race through the next chapter to get to the previous chapter, but then that chapter makes me race. So it's also like it's also a technique as well, just to sort of keep that pace going, actually, because people are wanting to hear more of that story, but then they want to hear more of that story, and it's sort of that way of that as well, bringing the reader along too.
And looking at the what the book's about, the topic of whiskey is obviously, I mean you've picked two of the big things that Scotland's famous for, which is whiskey and crime, probably. So
I thought you were going to say whiskey and murder.
Not just murder, all types of crime.
All types of crime, yeah.
But I know you've had interest in whiskey for a long time. You're a whiskey ambassador. You've got a qualification in whiskey ambassador. So I wondered, what is that exactly, and where did the whiskey interest come from for yourself?
Yeah, the whiskey ambassador is a course that you can do. And when I did it in 2020, it was late January. It's aimed at anyone that kind of works in the industry of whiskey, and it was at the time the only accredited one specializing in whiskey. There's lots of courses for people that works in the sort of food and drinks that are, wine, for example. But that was the first one that was really focused on Scotch whiskey, with the aim of things like increasing awareness of it, increasing the knowledge of its very particular nuances and history and context, and and just really enjoying it as well. And but I didn't work in the drinks industry. I was just I just like learning, and I like doing courses. I'm just one of these people that I always have like a little course going on in the background of some kind, I must have found it because I followed loads of whiskey stuff, so I think it probably came up on a Facebook page or something like that, and they were going to do one in Perth, which is where I live. So I went, great, I can walk around the corner, learn loads about whiskey, maybe meet other people, and then get a certificate at the end of it, which is also something I quite like. I like a little, you've achieved a thing.
Exactly.
No, totally agree.
And it was something that I got scored on as well, and I like to, get an A as well. So, and to me, I thought that was a great thing to be able to say. Right. I just thought it'd be a great thing to be able to say, like, oh, you like whiskey, do you? Well, I'm actually certified.
I'm actually an ambassador.
Yeah, do you have a certificate to say that? I should get it laminated and carry it around with me.
And I want to ask, because obviously you said you started taking writing more seriously, as a result of later on, I think you said around 28 or something like that, you started taking it more seriously. And I wondered if what you brought in terms of or how you found your process for writing. Were you someone that has this idea for the whiskey thing? Was it just an idea and you just started writing to explore it, or do you like to sit down and plan it out before you start writing proper?
Yeah, well, now I'm writing my second book. I'm having to think what worked the first time and see, what actually I'd rather do. Or see how I can improve upon what I did with the first book. And really, for the Malt Whisky Murders, I had the idea and I'd done the pitch and I'd sort of started writing. So the pitch really, it became the synopsis. That sort of 2.5 minutes became the synopsis of my book. And from there, I thought I should probably plan a bit. And I think I'm someone that maybe starts more with the scenes that I'd like to see, or I can imagine them, go on walks and maybe record myself talking aloud to myself. I think I don't think I'm going to have a very linear, clear question to this answer. And I'm finding again with my second book, I have a lot of things I know I want to happen.
Yeah.
And I have an idea of characters, and then I just have to spend a lot of time really just sitting and thinking about it and imagining it and researching it. And then my plan gets a little more detailed, but I think I'm maybe what you call a plantser. So I'm like in between a pantser and a planner. Yeah. Flying by the seat of my pants, but with some plan in mind. I'm not just. I know like the key emotional moments, or I know I can sort of see a few scenes with dialogue and things like that, and the key moments that are going to happen. And I keep trying to plan really thoroughly, and then when I start writing, my plan goes out the window. So I've just decided that's not going to work for me. Because once you start writing, you're getting into the actual details of it, and you can, imagine and think and sort of say this will happen and that will happen and that will happen. But when you start writing, get into the details of it, you go, well, that can't happen actually, because or they wouldn't say that, or because of this thing's just happened. Oh, how did they get to that side of the room? Even like simple things like that. So I've just got to write, and then what I found as well, and now with my second book the same, I'll write from the start to a certain point, and then I'll start writing from the end. and then kind of they will meet.
Wait, when you say you start writing from the end, you mean actually writing like chapters, the final chapter, the second final chapter, the third final chapter? You actually write it like Memento style. That's bonkers. That is mental. I cannot even imagine how that would work.
Because I know where I want to go, and I kind of know where I start, and then it's sort of how do I get there. So I would say it's more from the start. So like for every 3 chapters I write from the beginning, I write like 1 chapter at the end.
And then you go back to the start, do more chapters, and go back to the end again.
Yeah.
I kind of made the meat, and then went back. And then went back and sort of moved things around and stuff like that, or realized I needed more chapters here, or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I have in the past. If you know, like you say, if you know something is going to happen, but it's a bit further down, sometimes it can help clarify how this earlier bit needs to go. If you do write,
people can see that.
Even sort of in a sort of half draft form or whatever.
Kind of building out the runway a little bit. To give yourself something to land on.
Yeah, that's it. And they're not like fully fleshed things, and but then they're there, because then as I write from the start, then I'll start going back to those chapters at the end and be like, oh yeah, I'll add that in, based on what I'm writing. But okay, maybe it sounds weird, but maybe it'll work for someone else.
I suppose you're almost like building. It's almost like you're writing the foreshadowing stuff, and you're making sure it pays off and it ties in. Things you're laying down at the start tie into the end stuff. I mean, I don't think I would be able to do that. I think I would struggle too much with not knowing enough of where I was going to be able to write that chapter with, or be too worried that I would write that chapter and go back, and by the time I got to the chapter again,
it might not
too
fit.
Much, or it
might not fit.
Yeah. That was
exactly. Yeah,
that's interesting.
There were definitely things that like need to cut or absolutely changed or taken out and things like that. But I think that just helped me to know where my end point.
No, I can see that. That's very interesting.
And with the alternating viewpoints, did you? I just wondered, given what you've just said, did you write some of those sort of consecutively and then split them up as, as you were putting the final book together, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, so I wrote, I'd maybe write 2 or 3 Ailey chapters, and then I'd write 2 or 3 U chapters, as well, like that. So I didn't write it as you read it whatsoever, but I did. But that was for the first draft. Then I went back. And it was thoroughly,
That's a joy of, like, we've talked before, I'm sure, about stuff like Scrivener, like, writing software, which is not just a linear word file. It's you actually write stuff in scenes. You can and it is a godsend for moving scenes around or software like that. I think it's much easier nowadays to totally rejig and edit a book like that rather than having to highlight, copy and paste whole chapters and move them around, which is quite kind of hard. But I wanted to ask about the speed you write, because are you quite a fast writer then? Because did you say that when you pitched to Play Scotland, you hadn't finished the book, or you'd only written the opening chunk of it basically, and the rough idea, and you then had to go and finish it after that point? So was you quite a fast writer?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm someone that needs a short deadline, because if you give me a long deadline, I'll use the whole time. Whereas if I need something that's a bit more urgent and pressing, I think to stay on it. So I remember Alison at Berlin was like, so when do you think, the manuscript will be finished? And I said, December, because in my mind I sort of calculated, because I will write, because I hadn't, ever finised a whole novel before. I was like, I will write exactly this amount every single day for the next I was so naive.
I do that all the time. You never. I'll do 1,000 words every day, and never hit it.
No. But actually, and I think I don't think she said it like explicitly, but I think Jenny was a bit like, okay. But I did, and that's what I needed, and then so I wrote it in about 4 months.
Wow.
And then. But I had all the knowledge, and I had all the, and it was already in my mind. And but again, that was the first draft, so that's just the first stage. And actually, getting that out is the most difficult part. That is to me the most difficult part. So that's, and then there was moving around and editing and things like that. Yeah. And so I think I can't remember. A friend was like, "Oh, so you averaged this many words a day?" And I was like, "I suppose if you look at it like that," but in reality, it was like one day would be like 3,500 words.
Yeah.
4 days of 0 words, 1 day of 500 words. Like, it was very much more. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why I write my scenes kind of as I like, because I need to remove as many barriers as possible to me turning up to the computer to write. Okay. So, R.F. Kwang, who wrote Yellowface, said that they write the scenes they're most excited to write first, which I know some others have the wisdom of like, well, I save them so that I have something to write towards, and I'll keep writing and it will get me excited to write those scenes. But I kind of actually prefer this other way of writing the scenes you want to write, because they're the ones then that probably the audience will want to read. And they're obviously the key ones that I think I need to almost like experience it and imagine it before I can write it a bit. Okay. So if I'm, there was a few times where I was like maybe stuck. So I was like, well, I'll just write the bits that I can see very clearly, and then solutions will appear as I write, and they do. So you just that's why you just need to get it written.
Yeah, it's almost like sort of laying down sort of foundation stones that you're happy with, and then sort of putting the rest of it together afterwards. But
yeah, exactly.
I want to ask about editing. Not so much. We've sort of discussed there about how you put your novel together, but more obviously this is your first novel. First experience dealing with a publisher and an editor there, presumably. So, how did you find that process? Was there any notes that came back that you're like, not sure about that, or anything like that?
I wasn't sure how I was going to deal with the editing process, because I think it is you can be a little bit tender about this kind of thing. And it was the biggest thing I'd ever done as well, and just passing it off to someone else. But I felt good in that initial passing it along, because I knew I was in capable hands, as well. So I think if you've got that faith in your editor, then that really helps. That whole idea of like you wouldn't take advice from someone there's someone you wouldn't take advice from, then don't listen to it, kind of thing. But I would take their feedback all the time. So the initial, I guess, read through, I don't know what you call it, but the initial read through was done, and sort of a handful of things were pulled out and put onto one page. It was about 5 larger things, and I was like, yeah, I agree, and in fact, yes, I was thinking this, a lot, and I was like, yes, I was wondering, that was niggling at me too, and so had a bit of discussion, went away, edited some bits, then resubmitted, and then it was more detailed and more. There were some cutting of chunks, but mostly I agreed with it. And the only one that, and we laugh about it now, is I was quite keen to have a dog character in it. They didn't have to be, a main character or anything like that. But again, what do I like reading? For me, the famous
like
five,
a POV of the dog.
No, not the POV. Just that there is a dog there.
Right, okay.
I can see why that might
people
be
do that. Some people do that. Yeah, I don't know.
No. Although Lessons in Chemistry does it really well. If you've ever read that, it's really good. But just that there would be a dog there. They are sort of part of the conversation a bit. They're there. They're present. And again, writing what I like to read. The famous 5. Timothy dog, for example. Like I love. There's obviously some fantasies. There's other things that I've read that have had animals in it, whether they're talking or not. But mine is a real dog, just a dog. But I was sort of doing description of like the dog in the background or the dog doing this, and to me they were interjecting in the conversation. Like if you've ever, spent a lot of time with dogs or something like that, or cats and pets, that they're kind of part of the group as well a little bit.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I agreed with some of it. Like, maybe we're spending a bit too much time on the dog here. We've just had like a very intense emotional thing happen, and now you're making the reader sit through like 3 paragraphs of like how the dog is like sighing. So like, yeah, fair enough. So that was the only one where I was a bit like, oh, but we, it was a really great compromise, and that was the only one where I was a bit like, oh no, but then I had to sit and analyze like what, why am I, why am I holding on to this, and then but actually what serves the story and what serves for the reader.
I think that's a really tough point to make, isn't it? Is that when that realization of like something isn't working and it's something which you love about the story, but deep down you have to cut it away and you're keeping it to kill your darlings, and you're keeping it in for the wrong reasons, and it's hurting the story, I suppose.
And I think other people do this, and I did this whenever I was even writing like essays at uni and stuff. I always have a document that's just called leftovers, and I just cut anything that I'm cutting, especially if it's if I'm editing, that's fine, but if I'm like cutting, I'll put it in there, even if I don't think I will ever look at that again. And I to be honest, I don't really go back and look at that document, but I know it's there. So
yes, it's sort of a security thing, isn't it?
It's a security thing. I think some people call it like an ideas garden or something like that. If it's, and I do it with poetry even as well. Like sometimes there's a line you're like, oh, that is an amazing line, but it doesn't fit this poem, So you put it in your little garden, and then it's there for you to repurpose and use another time. And the thing is, a book is so big that actually, a couple of things that I cut out then actually fit in other scenes later when I was writing. So
nice.
Yeah.
And
no, I was just going to say that just before we move on from dogs, the other thing, of course, to tell you about pets in books is you can do anything you want to the main characters, but never ever let the pet get harmed or killed.
We'll never understand this. Genuinely, I mean, I love. We've got a dog. I love dogs, but I don't quite get the weird skewed viewpoints of I
know you can kill children.
Kill a kid,
that's fine.
No problem.
Exactly.
Kill a dog, and it's like public enemy number 1. Don't quite get it.
Yeah, and there's whole websites, isn't there, like that explain if if the dog dies in a book or a film.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, I can't read that. The dog dies in it. Mental.
Yeah. And also, it's all fictional anyway. It's all
exactly
not real dog. I've not been killing dogs.
Unless, but I think you do get a pass, right? If you're like a John Wick movie where the whole film is
the
about
motivation
revenge
is
for killing my dog. Yeah. So if you're avenging a dead dog, that's cool.
That's
But if it's just like an ancillary death, or if it's just a murder, if it's just cold-blooded death with nothing else, that's a no.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's a minefield out there. I wanted to ask you a question. I read in an interview you said that all writing is autobiographical, and I wondered how much of yourself and your world is in this book.
Yeah, I think it is always to an extent. Magpieing moments and incidents and people and everything like that for it. And I listened to the Bloody Scotland podcast episode with Val McDermid in it the other day, and she was a journalist for a while, and she came across all kinds of characters, and she was saying that she'd interviewed royalty, and a person off the street kind of thing, and so she'd seen the whole spectrum, and so those people all became sort of characters eventually. So I guess in terms of autobiographical, though, there's links with me and Ailey to an extent. I hope that she's more frustrating than me. I hope that my level of being frustrating to other people isn't quite her level. Like, she's definitely an exaggerated version, and there's lots of things about her that are nothing like me at all. But things like the interest in whiskey and her discovering it through avoiding writing an essay. Instead of going up to the library to finish an essay, she's like, I could just spend a $5 in this pub that's just opened instead. That happened for real. I was also 19, and then I also had the experience of being at whiskey, from the age of about 19, being at a lot of whiskey tastings or whatever. When I kind of got really interested in it, it was often like me and my friend, maybe a couple other people, were like the only women, or we brought the average age down and things like that. And so that was quite an interesting element of it, because, why are those rooms like that? And it's something that's changed a lot. But, I'm just thinking out loud a little bit, but almost I was a bit like, oh, wow, what, this almost has been like, I find this so fascinating, and I know so many people that will. So why is it that it's I don't think it's necessarily been blocked off, but it's not been open, as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not been seen as the thing. So yeah, definitely, something that's hugely changing. So yeah, there's elements that's autobiographical, and there's a wee moment in the book where a farmer has been knocked over by one of his sheep, and he is stranded in his field with no phone signal, with just a little flask of whiskey to keep him company, and he keeps waving at passing traffic, to get help, and they all keep thinking like, oh, it's such a friendly place, oh, it's friendly around here. That happened to someone I know, so that's being sort of true story. And it wasn't until they didn't come home for tea that someone was like, hold on a minute, they're normally here like on the dot at this time, so with some changes and embellishments and things like that, but that generally happened. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. And so Malt Whisky Murders is out now. Bloody Scotland debut prize in September, which good luck for that one. But you said you'd already started working on the next one. How is that going? You don't need to tell us the details of it if you don't want to, but just generally.
Yeah, I think it's going quite well. It's been fun. I love the research stage of everything. And one of the things I said about the Malt Whisky Murders was, researching things like that, going more deep into whiskey, or go following a rabbit hole or something. That used to be me procrastinating something I was meant to do, and now I was meant to do it. So that was great. It became book research. That was great. And so for my next book, it's not whiskey. Whiskey is going to be a part of it. There's going to be a sort of a chapter with things to do with whiskey in it, but it's a lot to do with fakes and forgeries and con artists, which is really, really fun. So that's what so whiskey I was already interested in, con artists I was already interested in. So I already had a really good, sort of surface, superficial knowledge. Maybe more deeper than some other people that didn't have an interest in it already, but now I'm like right in there, so that's been really fun. So my protagonist is a con artist It's set in Scotland in the 1960s and 70s, which again is like just a period that interests me, but also in terms of cons and fakes and forgeries, especially fakes and forgeries is a bit easier to get away with then. They didn't have the same tests for dyes and things.
Exactly, yeah.
No
one filming things on a phone and things like that. Yeah,
exactly. And and I think you'll agree, and it's something that's talked about quite a lot, and it's in crime in particular, that things like the internet and mobile phones can kind of really actually hamper a story, because it's really easy to find stuff out. So I thought I'm quite nostalgic for a pre-internet, so I want to write of that time, so it all kind of worked out together. So
nice. I like sound of that a lot.
Been listening to a lot of music of that era to kind of
nice, to get yourself in the right mindset for it and set the scene. I've not read that many kind of con artist book stories. I love that genre of stuff. Like, there's not enough films about, like, Ocean's 11 type heists and cons, and I love all that kind of stuff, the sleight of hand and all the loads of wee tricks you can play the viewers and readers. So that's very exciting.
And sort of a charismatic person that can get away with it. But basically a lot of con artists and stuff get away with it because they're so audacious, because people the average person is like, well, no one would lie or pretend about something so big. And actually that's sometimes the strength in it, is that they are being that.
And also often what will happen is, sort of linked to that, is that people won't question you. If you like, it's, I've heard stories of like people just getting into past security and stuff because they just walk in confidently.
Yeah, if you look like you're meant to be there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I watched that. There was a podcast in the TV show version. Was it Elizabeth Holmes? Is that her name?
The Baroness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I love that story, and it's just a case of like. Yeah. The dropout is that exactly, yeah. And the case of saying she invented something when she hadn't, and she knew it didn't work, but just confidently acting like it worked, and just and more.
But that must have got very stressful.
Oh, I mean, by the end of it, it's horrible. It's absolutely. I mean, it's the money involved and stuff. It's just mental, but it's all just people believe it. If they want to believe it, you can sell something to
And there's a quote that I'm probably going to try and use as an epigraph, which is something like the world wants to believe. So let them. And the world wants to be deceived, actually. You want to believe that, you're lucky enough. Oh, of course, this wonderful opportunity is going to happen to me. I deserve it. And like back to like the Elizabeth Holmes thing, so I've been delving into like a lot of like non-fiction about things like framing, nudging, these kind of elements of, so Elizabeth Holmes, was already, primed to do well in this sort of having an amazing product in like the biological tech scene, because she was very, very capable, very, very smart. She dropped out of, I can't remember what university it was, Stanford. She was primed to be like, she was following the story of these other CEOs, and so it was that added like this credibility to what she was doing.
That's right.
And is that did you get a 2-book deal with Berlin, or is this one to be sold?
No, I'm writing a book, and that will be a book. We will see. But I did, I pitched a couple of ideas as well. So this was the one they were like, oh yeah, I think that would fit more with the audience of your first book. So there's nothing guaranteed, but yeah.
Cool.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Excellent. And final question, I suppose, before we move on to the sort of usual questions we ask our guests, which is, what whiskey do you recommend people drink when reading your book?
When reading my book, I think a Talisker Storm, because it's just very like emotional and but light and playful as well. So that's it's a bit dark, bit of light, bit of storm, bit of sunshine. Like
excellent. I like it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I have a little tangent on that if
please.
So I visited Skye, where Talisker is, I think 2018, and it was a really, really, really hot summer. And when we went, it hadn't rained for several days, and they, the main ingredient in whiskey is water. The spring water, water, barley, yeast, and because it hadn't rained, they'd had for, I can't remember now exactly, but like about 3 days, they'd had to like half their whiskey production.
Right.
So we were there on Skye being like, wow, oh my gosh, the weather's amazing. How lucky are we? Everyone says you need to experience Skye when it's not raining and blah, blah, blah. And we'd had several days of sunshine, and they were like, oh my gosh. I think maybe they hadn't had it for 5 days, right? No rain for 5 days.
Okay.
Half whiskey production, and they said if this continues for another even 3 days, they'd have to stop.
Really?
Wow.
It's that close to the bone, that kind of just in time manufacturing.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
nuts.
Yeah, I didn't realise that either. Yeah, that's...
I assume they could just
That just shows you like the elements are involved in it.
turn tap
Yeah.
on. Just put the tap on, guys. What's the problem? It's fine.
Yeah. What was the last book that you read?
I read Bee Quest. I've grabbed it up. Bee Quest by Dave Goulson, which is non-fiction, and it's his quest for rare bees. So he's going around the world trying to track down different bee species.
Nice,
So
okay.
that kind of thing is just fascinating to me. Anything that's kind of quite niche like that is interesting. So there's some bee species that you can only find on some of the Western Isles or the Hebrides in Scotland because they have this geographical thing called macaire, which is basically like sand, and then it's a sort of type of wild grassland, macaire. So
Okay.
there's basically perfect for wildflowers, and so that's what bees need. Yeah,
Is that the sort of thing that Trump wanted to knock down when he was building his golf course?
probably. And actually, if you go to like links golf courses, which are obviously on the coast,
Yeah.
then you might see these kinds of things, but then they're the kind of things that might get destroyed as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
exactly. So, and bees.
Excellent.
So
Are bees not one of these species that are like super important? Like if they vanished, it would be like massive devastation in terms of like.
Didn't
Huge.
M. Night Shyamalan make a whole film about that?
Is that the happening? Is that what the
Yeah.
happening's about? I've never
I
actually
think
watched
so,
that
yeah,
film.
yeah.
I've only seen the memes.
I watched that film whenever it came out, and I erased it from my mind. Like, the moment
Is
they
it
kind
about?
of
Is it
said
about
that-
bees vanishing? Is that
I
the?
think
It was
it
something
is.
about
I think
the
it is.
trees getting their revenge on us.
I need to. I actually do need to.
So the
watch it.
trees are
This
getting
sounds
revenge on
amazing.
us by making us like, want to harm ourselves. Like they're putting out stuff into the air to be like, hurt yourselves or something.
But do they not need CO2? Short-sighted trees.
Yeah.
Anyway, apart from the happening, what was the last film that you watched?
What was the last film that I watched? I rewatched one of my absolute favorites. It's a comfort watch. I watch it minimum once a year, if not more, which is Legally Blonde. I think it is the perfect film.
I've seen it for years, actually.
I think it's the
Very good.
perfect film. We've got a wonderful character arc in Elle Woods. She begins, quite self-assured, and she's quite determined, and she has some conflicts and challenges, and at the end of it, she's changed, the people around her have changed, and it's just light and funny, and it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
And that would be it. And I was trying to watch some of the 28 Days and Weeks films,
yeah.
but
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
rubbish with horror. I'm absolutely squeamish, and anything to do with eyes. So I was like watching it like this. So I don't think I can say I watched 28 Weeks Later. I kind of watched the opening scene with Robert Carlyle, and then kind of did this, and then partway through left.
The opening scene, we watched 28 Weeks Later just a few nights ago, actually, to get ready for the new
Exactly,
one. And the opening scene in the second one is the best part by far. The second film is a bit, but the opening scene is amazing in that house, and it's just so tense, and it's brilliant.
Yes, so good.
I've heard mixed
but-
things about the new one, but I don't know.
Well, have you?
Yeah.
We'll not do spoilers, but I'm not going to go watch it at the cinema. I had to leave The Substance partway through. That's how.
That was a
pathetic it was.
particularly. I love
Yeah.
that, but it's very gory. It's very
Yeah, and
kind of
I
body
thought
horror
I
and
was
stuff.
like made of sterner stuff, and I remember one of my friends messaging me being like, "Oh, how was it?" And I went, "Had to leave, 10 out of 10."
It's a needle. It's the syringe and the spine stuff. All that
Yeah,
kind
it
of,
was stuff
all
like that. I have a thing about eyes. I think a lot of people do, and it's like they play a lot with like light and sound and stuff. Like Dennis Quaid is like chopping on things, and
Yeah, weird like fisheye lens and his
Yeah,
perspective
and
stuff.
the
Yeah,
noise.
very-
I think because I kept covering my eyes every time I opened my eyes again, the light was really, really bright, and then the sound.
is great
and
eating those
I
prawns.
thought I was like, I've got stomach flu. That's what's happening. I have a stomach flu. I need to leave. So I made
Just
my husband
Dennis
leave with
Quaid
me.
eating prawns. It's too much.
We were sat on the bench after outside the cinema, seeing if I would feel okay or we needed to go home. And I kind of cooled down and calmed down, and I was like, yeah, I don't think it was stomach flu. I think I had a very intense physiological reaction. So I've made the decision to not watch horror movies in cinemas anymore because it's a waste of money. I might have to leave. It's too much for me. But in the safety of my own home, maybe when I can pause it,
Yeah. Have to have the curtains open and stuff. What about TV? What are you watching on TV at the moment?
The Studio.
Oh, it's so
I
good.
need to watch that. Yeah,
So
you
good.
big fan, Marco?
Yeah.
Funniest thing I've seen in ages. Yeah.
Isn't it so good? I mean, the second episode is called The Oneer, and it's them trying to get one of those long shots, a one long take, and you could just watch it by itself. It is a standalone piece of.
I need to watch
this. The episode itself is a one-shot take as well. So yeah, it's amazing. Definitely worth watching that. Tarek, what's the last bit?
So the very, very last thing we always do is a super quick fire either or. There's no right answer to any of these apart from the last one, which everybody always gets wrong. But we'll start off with let's go writing poetry or writing fiction.
I'm going to say poetry. I'm going to say
That's
poetry.
right. Yeah, no,
Okay.
Because you can finish a poem in a morning and novels.
That's very true.
That's true.
I love the process. I love the process. I'm not saying that, but
Yeah. TV or cinema?
TV.
Night owl or early bird?
Early bird, annoyingly so. Yeah.
Music or no music when you're writing?
Generally can't have words, but I need music or maybe a fire sound like crackling
just
fire or
something.
clicking keys.
So drive
I'd have silence. Yeah, or classical music I've started using actually recently.
Nice. And last one, let's go for real book or ebook.
Real book.
Incorrect. I'm afraid.
Brilliant.
I don't think we've had anyone pick ebook for maybe a year or
Berate
something
them
now.
if they do. Do you tell them off? Do you kick them out?
If anyone picks real book,
Tarek wants people to
I
pick
want them to
ebook,
pick ebook. I mean, I don't.
but no one ever does.
I feel sorry for ebooks now because no one ever picks them, so I've become their champion. And
Well, I was close. I'll be honest. I was close to it, and actually, to be fair, I would say maybe more than 50% of what I read is potentially.
Natalie, this is what everyone does, right? Everyone
is
always
what
picks.
everyone does.
Everyone always picks real book, and then I give them my sob story about how no one picks ebooks. It's so bad, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" But actually, I do love ebooks. Now I think about it, actually, yeah, I pick ebooks. Yeah, I love them, and it's just it's okay. So just keep the false choice.
Yeah,
Fine. You be proud of your real book choice. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the right
fine.
choice.
I think I would prefer a physical book where possible, but ebooks are very convenient. Aren't they?
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah. I mean, I don't genuinely. I mean, I'm not really have much of a preference, but they are amazing for you're traveling or something.
And also just space and stuff.
And
like
space,
that.
yeah,
Unless you've got a
storage. Trying to
library or
find space.
something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And for me, it's like kind of impulsivity. Like I want to read that book now.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so I'll always check, Libby and things like that, and I'll put stuff on hold or I'll
Yeah,
just
Libby's.
buy
I
it.
need to use that more. That's kind of the library, the ebook library that is like amazing. In fact, you can actually borrow ebooks and for free, obviously. So yeah, I need
Fantastic
never
for
used it
audiobooks. I
either.
use it for
Yeah.
audiobooks all the time.
to. For audiobooks as well. That is good. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you read on a tablet, sometimes I'll read on a phone, but obviously it's quite a small screen, and I'm trying to not use my phone as often. But if we've got a very old tablet and it works just fine on there. So I basically have a little Kindle sort of
Nice.
set up for it.
Nice one. Thanks very much for coming on. That was great.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. That was great. Fun.
Well, Tarek, I think this is the season that has been the worst for you. I think Katrina picked ebooks. Everyone else, I'm pretty sure that we
Yeah,
asked,
I think that's fair.
picked.
Yeah, they.
picked
It's
real books.
that's nuts actually. How
And
bad
even
it is.
Natalie there
I-
did the usual thing of saying, but I quite
Honestly.
like ebooks, but
No respect for folk. Just own your mistake. Just own it and live with it, guilt free.
Yeah, but thanks to Natalie for coming on to the podcast. It was a fun chat, and I think it's the dream of all people that write books to have a sort of success story in terms of being picked up, getting a book deal and all that so quickly.
Whirlwind,
It's
just
incredible.
it's fantastic, right?
And she's up for as we said at the start, she's up for the debut prize at Bloody Scotland, which is very soon. So good luck to her in that one. We will actually be there. So
Yes.
we will see if she wins it. This is, as I said at the start, the last episode in the current season. I don't know why we divide it into seasons, but
I've often wondered that myself.
but basically we divide it into seasons so that I don't actually go mad or have a nervous breakdown from editing podcasts. I have edited about 10 podcasts in the last week because we did all of these before I went on holiday. So it's
fair play. It's MVP, Marco.
It's been right done so I do need a little break from it, but we are not away. We are not fully away because you can't get rid of us that easily. In our absence, on this podcast feed, we're going to drop in a few of Nadine Matheson's The Conversation podcast episodes. In case you haven't listened to that before, she's given us a few of her favourite episodes just to drop in there. We'll play a few of those. Drafting notes, we'll have some of those in our absence as well on a Wednesday. And also our joint show, Adventures in Publishing Land. It won't drop on this feed. So if you're listening on the podcast, open your app and search for Adventures in Publishing Land, or go to the link in the podcast description of this one.
It's a really fun show.
We will be our first few episodes weren't as regular as we wanted them to be because of holidays, but it's every couple of weeks it will or should be coming out, and it's a really fun chat, as you say, Tarek, with Nadine, looking at the latest publishing news, giving our thoughts, giving our views, and also getting into the weeds on some completely irrelevant topics as well, but good fun I think.
And of course the Superman rivalry between Marco and Nadine.
Yeah. Well, I won that one easily.
Ever running.
Yes, but yeah, in the meantime, genuinely thank you for tuning in to the podcast. It really means a lot to us when we hear from people. You know, we've been at festivals and people come up to us and say, "Are you from Page One?" and stuff, which I find incredible, frankly, but it also means that we're not speaking completely into the void. So thank you for listening. If you do enjoy listening to us, please do take the time to rate and review us, because it really helps us to continue to get great guests on the podcast, helps us to get up the rankings, and it really does make a real difference if you give us those 5 stars, and especially if you're able to leave a review or something like that. So we would really appreciate that.
And of course, if you would like to get in touch, you can always do so in a variety of the usual ways. The first is an email. Just send us an email to podcast@rightgear.co.uk. Find us on all the usual good social media networks. Just search for @UK Page One. Search for Stet Podcasts. Search for Marco and myself. Drop us a message. Always happy to hear. Join the Patreon. Come on the Discord. Chat to us on there. You can find us on YouTube. You know, search for UK Page One.
You can't get away from us, as I said.
Literally, we're everywhere. I mean, I suspect people see us so often, it's off-putting. That's why no one ever writes in. That's what it must be. Yes, we'd love to hear from you.
But in the meantime, you know, have a good time, have a good break from us anyway, and
more importantly, Marco, I hope you manage to recharge after your epic 2-week editing.
Try and cope with not staying up late, making.
You find yourself lying by the pool, your fingers just making
exactly.
The mouse.
When I close my eyes, I can see
clicking.
the pointer in Adobe Premiere making those cuts. But we won't be gone for long. You may be sad to hear. We will be back soon, and as I say, in the meantime, there will be stuff to fill the void, and we will speak to you in just a few weeks, I imagine.
Nice. Well, everyone, have a nice summer holidays, and we'll see you soon.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here, or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening, and join us for the next episode.
See you later.